everyone, I'm Tiffany from Fuzzy Roots in South Africa, and I own a rare plant nursery. And today I thought I would give you some tips on our most requested plant, which is a Monstera Albo. I've got a variety of different examples for you that I'm going to go through, which I will explain the care, different growing options, as well as possible pitfalls when it comes to trying to propagate them. So first, most people know of Monstera borsigiana, which is the small form, which are these ones that I've got around me, and then Monstera deliciosa, which is your large form. I don't have a large form with me today. They do get incredibly big, and they are incredibly expensive and not very common. So if you're looking for a Monstera Albo and you're finding one on Facebook Marketplace or Etsy or your local sellers, you're more than likely going to be purchasing the borsigiana, which is the small form, but it doesn't mean that it's small. It does still get quite large. The leaves do get quite big, but in order to upsize it as much as possible, it would be advisable to grow it on a pole so that the leaves can reach maturity and you'll get double fenestrations. But these are all more or less juvenile specimens, but I'm going to show you within this group, the borsigiana small form group, the different options that you can find. So the most common one that you're going to find is going to be your, I'll show you this one, there are some with names like tiger stripes or white tiger. To me, they are more just a variety of this marbled, stripy pattern. But as with all Monstera Albos and any variegated plants, they can change, they can develop into a different type of variegation as they grow. Nothing is stable on a chimeric variegated plant. So, for example, you can see this is almost a half moon leaf, and that's almost a full white leaf. But you still have this double variegation where you get a little bit of like a minty color and a white color. On these, you can see a bit better. It's variegated in the front and back. So variegation is essentially just a layer of chlorophyll that's missing in the plant's leaf structure. So with just one layer missing, you'll get this more lighter minty color. With a couple of more layers missing, you get the more white elbow. Now you also get aurea, which is yellow. I do have aurea here to show you. So aurea would be the more yellow variegated. Sorry, this is a fresh import, so it's been a bit damaged. But just so that you can see what you're looking at. Now, I've also got what we call a sectoral variegated. So the sectoral variegated Monstera is more like this one, where you find more of these patches, and it's a very clear-cut patch of variegation and not as much of the marble variegation. And I think I actually don't have too many of these. These are not as easy to find as the marble. The marble are much more common, but to get a sectoral one is not very easy or as common to find, but they are around. And then, of course, the prize that everyone's looking for is your half moon, where you have a perfectly half green and half white leaf. That would be, that's the most sought after, but also not as easy to find. So now that I've explained the different types of Monstera Albo, I thought let me just explain to you some of the problems that you may find with these plants. So I'm going to get this big one over here. So even though this one is growing very nicely, this one unfortunately got a little bit of sun damage and it was left outside. The humidity wasn't perfect. So the tips have all crisped on this plant. Now, what I would recommend if you are experiencing a similar problem with browning edges is to make sure first that your mix is correct, that you're growing it in the correct mixture. That's the first step. And the second step is I would recommend to use Agrisil K50. So this product is it's an acid-based silica. So you would dilute this. It says 5 mils to every 1 liter. And I would say once a week or once to every 2 weeks, you can spray all your plants. I do a foliar spray. You can also do a drench with this. And what it does is it helps build up the cell structure in the leaf, which helps prevent this browning and breaking. So once your plant has been regularly receiving Agrisil, you will find much less browning, especially on the very white Monsteras. Because as I explained earlier, with the layers of chlorophyll missing, these are the first to get damaged, the white parts. They're the first parts to go brown because they don't have enough chlorophyll and keeping the cell structure of the leaves together, so they will just die. But with Agrisil, it really helps keep the integrity of the cell structures and stop the browning. Then another product that I would highly recommend is Novion, or Novion, depending on how you say it. So Novion is a mycorrhiza fungi. This product will really help boost the growth, the overall growth of your plant, the roots, and your plant will have a better immune system towards little bugs or nunus or fungus that comes its way. It just overall improves your plant's defenses. So I've really noticed a much higher leaf growth. So the size of my leaves are much better when I use Novion against those that don't have Novion. And I find that the roots are much better with Novion. So whereas I will upsize from, say, a 9-inch pot to a 12-inch pot, I would normally, if I'm using a lot of Novion, I will go from a 9 to a 14 because it's growing so quickly and the roots are already escaping out the bottom of the pot. So in order to accommodate it, the root growth is just much better, and we have thicker, healthier roots instead of the fine, strangly roots. You get much thicker roots when using this. So the next step with regards to your new Monstera, so when you purchase a plant, I know not everybody is purchasing a plant from me. They might purchase from Facebook Marketplace, a nursery, a friend, or you've got a cutting of a Monstera Albo and you would like to grow it out. Now, I know there's a lot of people that have fail-proof ways of growing a Monstera Albo, and I have tried all methods. I've tried the fish tank method, I've tried bubblers, water, leca, pond, sphagnum moss, and just growing it in aeroid mix. And overall, I feel that it doesn't matter what substance you use. It's who is doing it. Your outside environment plays a big role, as well as how you did the cutting. So what I'm going to use this plant here to demonstrate to you. So if I decided I was going to give you a top cut and I cut the plant here, there is a 90% chance you will lose this top cut. It's not going to make it and it'll probably rot and die. However, if you've done the cutting here and given me an aerial root, your chance now increases to about, I would say, 60 to 70% success rates of getting your cutting to root and grow. It's not that you can't do it. It's just this is very difficult if you have no aerial roots. It'll take much longer. The plants will wilt, and you're going to really struggle, specifically with top cuts. Now, 2 aerial roots and you are thriving. You probably have an 80% chance that this plant is going to grow just fine for you. What I would recommend is, if you are planning to cut a plant and you're not in a rush, is either take some sphagnum moss. So, like for example, this guy here. And you can just lay your plant down with the roots in the sphagnum moss and leave it to grow. Sometimes just put a little bit of cling film over here so that it doesn't fall out, and just let it grow. Or you can ball sphagnum moss around the roots in like a ball, and then use cling wrap around the stem to hold all the sphagnum moss on here. That's called air layering, and it works really, really well. So by the time you do cut the plant, you have secondary and third root structures already growing, which is great, and it's pretty much a fail-safe way of having a rooted cutting. Now, when you do, say for example, you've just got a cutting from a friend and you've got an aerial root or two aerial roots, a lot of people are tempted to put it the same orientation down into the soil. Now, if you are not experienced at rooting plants, I would suggest that you rather put it horizontally. The reason for this is the first place for a plant to start rotting is at the base of the stem. So if you're burying that in wet moss or wet soil or anything wet, you're more than likely going to start rotting your plant from the base. But if you put it horizontally with the roots in the moss, it's going to take and it'll start climbing upwards again. So overall, your plant will root a lot faster. You can see the roots are already climbing out the bottom of this tray. I should have repotted this ages ago. But now that it's been sitting like this for a couple of months, this end piece is calloused and dry, and it is not going to rot at all. So if I wanted to put this on a pole, I could replant it now on a pole this way, and it'll do just fine. It's not going to have any issues. So if you're scared about rooting it and you're worried about burying that end piece in the soil, because that's the most likely place it's going to rot, then I would suggest propagating it either in a bed of moss or in the bed of aeroid mix. So some people grow. I'm going to go into how to grow your Monstera. Most people will receive their Monstera in what we call aeroid mix. So our aeroid mix is a mixture of cocoa chips, cocoa peat, perlite. It's got a little bit of pumice in here, vermiculite. It's got some agricultural charcoal, and it's all inorganic. Well, it's not inorganic, but it's sterile substance. So there's no fungus gnats, there's no worms, there's no nunus. Everything in here has been washed and clean and sterile. This is what we would recommend you grow your Monstera in. It is airy, it drains fairly fast, it holds just enough moisture that it will keep the plant going until the next watering without it being soggy. Now, a lot of garden centers, if you receive your plant, you're more than likely going to get it in a pot of normal garden center potting soil, which is that dark, clumpy, heavy, wet potting soil. We wouldn't recommend that for these. These are known as aeroids, which means that they typically do have air roots and that they like to climb. So I would recommend repotting it into an aeroid mix, which is this, and allowing it to grow like this. Also, the reason why we only sell all our plants in an aeroid mix is because it doesn't have fungus gnats. It also doesn't have fungus gnat larvae or any possible bacterias or funguses in here. Fungus gnats are those little meaty flies that you see flying around your plants that are very hard to get rid of. With this, you won't have it. As soon as you add a garden center potting soil to this mix, there's normally fungus gnat larvae in the soil, and then you will end up with the problem of having fungus gnats in your mix and coming around your plants and irritating you, which our customers generally don't like, which is why we try and use only a sterile mix so that we don't encounter that problem. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, but they don't want to grow it in, say, for example, aeroid mix. They want to grow it in pon. So for those who are new to the plant community, this is pon. Pon is more of your pumice, your lava rock. It's got some zeolites in here. It's got also some charcoal and perlite. So it's got quite a variety of rocks. It drains really, really fast. and you can grow a lot of things very successfully in pond. And it also does help stop your plant rotting because it's not sitting in water. You normally would put your pond in a self-watering pot. So a self-watering pot is generally what you would call a net pot and a wick. So they normally come with a pretty wick, but you can also just use a microfiber cloth. And what you would do is you would thread your microfiber cloth through and then fill your little pot with some pond and put your plants in it. I'm not going to put anything in here for now, but just so that you can see. So once you've got your little tail pieces, you put your water or nutrient solution in the bottom of the pot, and just the tails go into the nutrient solution. This will then wick up only what the plant needs in the pond, and you don't have the problem of overwatering or drying out. It keeps your plants evenly moist with just what it needs as it needs. So this is a great way of, for people that don't want to have soil in their homes, is to go for either pond, or the other option that does essentially a very similar way to that is leca. Leca is just these little clay balls. They look like Cocoa Puffs, and they will do the same, wicking up just the nutrient solution that the plant needs to grow. Now, Monstera Albo will grow in either of these without any issues. You can, I know a lot of people prefer leca for your more chunkier rooted plants, and pond they like for your more finer rooted plants like Hoyas and allocations, but it's completely up to you. For a Monstera Albo, it will grow fine in either of these substrates. But this pond is much more costly than leca. Leca is a little bit more cost efficient, but overall, I prefer to grow in a normal aeroid mix, and I find all my plants thrive in the aeroid mix. And you can also grow them just in moss. But now remember, when you are growing in moss or pond or leca, there is no nutrients in any of these, and they don't hold nutrients well. So when you water, you need to water it with a nutrient solution where you've purchased a plant nutrient that you add to your water and then add it to every watering. With the aeroid mix, we generally leave a slow release fertilizer in our aeroid mix so that the plant has access to nutrients as it grows and upsizes. And then we also do foliar misting with Novion and Agrisil, which really helps improve the plant growth. So I've given you the basic tips on what to look for on a Monstera Albo. If you are looking for a Monstera Albo, they are the most beautiful plants to have in your home. They thrive indoors. They do not like to be in full sun. They do prefer to be in indirect, a bright light. I know you can get many grow lights nowadays on Temu or Shein, Facebook Marketplace, most local electrical stores. You can buy a grow light that you can screw into an existing light fitting, or you can install one of the USB ports that you can mount above the plant, and these will thrive perfectly under those without many issues for a normal household environment. And the nice thing about these is they stay fairly compact and small. They will upsize, so these leaves will get big like this, and the stem will get bigger as it climbs. So I just wanted to show you, this is what you would expect from a half moon Monstera Albo, is that you have this perfectly half white and perfectly half green leaf. The only issue, this was another half moon leaf, but the issue that you find with these plants is the variegation will often give you sometimes an all green leaf in between or an all white leaf in between. So if you look at the plant's stem, you'll see there's this very distinct strong white line growing up the stem. Like if you cut this plant, the growing eye on the plant will either be all white. If I look at this one here, this growing eye, if you look there, looks like it'll probably come out all white instead of half white and half green. And if you cut it on this node, this eye at the bottom on this side is all green, which means that the new growth will be all green and you won't have a variegated plant anymore, which is always a concern when cutting your plants, that you might end up with a plant that the new growth comes out like this. So this was a half moon plant, and this was a nice sized half moon Monstera. And once it was cut, the new growth is all white because it came out on the white part of the stem, which means that unfortunately with no chlorophyll, the chances of this plant surviving is also close to zero. So it'll grow a little bit, but after a while it will just die. The other problem that you get is the polar opposite to this, is the new growth will come out completely green and there will be no more variegation. And then you would have spent all your money on a green plant instead of the variegated plant that you were after. So I would highly suggest, if purchasing a cutting, purchase either the top cut, where you can see the original plant growth, so you can see that it is growing with variegation on it. If you purchase a mid or bottom cut, there's always a chance that you will get all white, all green, or hopefully the variegation you're after. So if you're buying a mid cut or a bottom cut, check that there's at least 2 or 3 nodes for you to try. So if the first node doesn't work, always cut it back and the next node will hopefully give you what you're looking for. There's never a guarantee with variegated plants. It is something that can happen to anyone, where the variegation will either go full elbow or revert back to plain green. And there's nothing much you can do except cut back. But if it's the first grown nodes, there's nothing to cut back to. So nothing's going to really help you because there's nothing to cut it. So this is a 1-node cutting, so I can't cut it back because there isn't anything green to cut it back to. So keep that in mind with these, which is why you find these are so much more common. When you look at the stem, you'll see that there is green and white in many lines coming through here. So the growing eye on each node generally has green and white going through it, which means you will get this nice mottled variegated leaf, which is a lot safer for you. So if you're getting a mid or bottom cut from one of these types of plants, which has got the more marble variegation, you'll more than likely get marble variegation on your new growth. But with the sectoral, which is the chunks of white and the chunks of green, these are incredibly difficult to maintain the sectoral variegation without the plant reverting either to all green or to all white. So if you see on the stem, I think there you can see nicely the white that runs through the plants. If I cut this plant and the growing eye falls on a plain white piece, then the new growth will be all white. If it falls on a plain green, then you're going to have plain green. If it happens to fall where it's got both colors running through, then you most likely will end up with another variegated plant, which is what you're after. So keep that in mind when propagating your plants as well. If you're planning to cut your plants, make sure you check where the growing eye, we'll insert a picture on here of what a growing eye looks like, and make sure when you look for that growing eye that it is on a green and white piece, so that you have better chances of getting a new growth that has got variegation on it and is not just all white or all green. I hope you found my video informative, and that if you want to add a Monstera Albo to your collection, it doesn't scare you off anymore and you feel confident in the different options for growing your plants. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you would like to find out exactly what's in our aeroid mix, we do have a video on how to make aeroid mix from scratch, and we do have videos on all the other plants that we do supply from our greenhouse.